Well, welcome everybody to another episode of the Iowa Gravel Series Podium podcast. I'm your host, Chris McQueen, and we have a fantastic guest for you today. Not from Iowa, but even better, our neighbors to the north. Maggie came in as one of our podium finishers at the Waukon 100 this year. Very excited to get to know you. Maggie, so good to have you on the call today.
Well, thank you, Chris, for having me. I'm looking forward to this podcast. Yes.
Yeah. Maggie, I did have one question that I probably should have asked you when we were getting to know each other a little bit before the call. And you mentioned that you were French Canadian, which means that I'm going to be very careful how I pronounce your last name. Could you pronounce your last name for me?
So my last name is Fournier.
Perfect. Fournier. Because that's, it's not spelled the exact same way as like a Fourier transform, like what I'm familiar with math and everything, but it's got that sneaky little N in there, and I want to make sure that was pronounced correctly. Well, Maggie, so you are up in Wisconsin. You came down for the Waukon 100. Let's maybe start there to get to know you a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about how you've gotten into cycling and what brought you to the Midwest from Montreal and Canada?
Yeah, so I started cycling at a very young age. So I grew up really in a rural community. And of course, cycling was our mean of transportation, right? I mean, you would get your bike to school, meet your friend. And so it just very naturally just became a sport that I really enjoyed. And it's really, truly only when I was in my mid 20s that I started to be a little bit more serious about cycling as a sport, trying to perform. And truly, my main love is triathlon. So I became a cyclist, so to speak, with triathlon in mind. And it's really been a three-sport type of approach to my cycling, meaning that I never really 100% focus on cycling, but there was always some swim and run involved with that. And so I started more triathlon in my mid-20s. That was after school. So I came to United States to go to graduate school. I'm a podiatrist. And after I finished medical school, I transferred to Wisconsin to do my residency. And I really fell in love with the Midwest and the area, which reminded me a lot of where I grew up. So I've been in the Midwest in Wisconsin ever since, really.
Oh, wonderful. I guess in some ways, a lot of folks in the United States will think of like the Midwest as kind of a colder area. But I mean, you growing up in Montreal and that area, you're like, well, no. I've come down to the Midwest in America to enjoy the warm weather, right?
That's right. So it is definitely warmer. And actually, my husband is from North Dakota, so he also came to the warmer weather as well. So there's definitely a good 2 to 3 weeks difference in how later the fall will be and how earlier the spring will be here. That's for sure.
Yeah. And I was just looking at your times on the Waukon 100, coming in first on the 100K and coming in around about that 4 hour mark for the women and everything, which is a great, fantastic time. It's not surprising to me that you come from a triathlon background when you come in with those types of times. Like the triathlon athletes that come in often are just so strong in the gravel area. You've already got this amazing aerobic base. You're ready to go do a couple more hours of whatever it might be. So that makes a lot of sense. What got you interested initially in triathlons? That's usually, and you can kind of correct me, usually folks come in from like one sport. They're a swimmer and they're like, well, I want to try this, or I'm a runner and well, I want an additional challenge. But what was your entry point for triathlons?
Oh, that is so long ago, but how I remember my entry point is that really was a friend who signed up for this event back home. And I'm like, oh, why don't I do this? And it was a triathlon in a beautiful area. And at that time, I was dabbling a little bit more in swimming and running a little bit. And I said, well, why not join you? And we ended up doing this triathlon together. And I absolutely fell in love with this. I think what I enjoyed the most about triathlon is really mixing three sports. So I feel that I'm constantly challenging myself with trying to be the best at those three, but not only at those three separate, but also together. How can you string three sports together and go as fast as you can? So it's really been a fun journey in triathlon.
Yeah, that's really cool. I find the triathlon workout is like a great aesthetic as well. Like it kind of evens out everything. If you're just
Yes,
a runner, you kind of like have one
yes,
look. If you're just a swimmer, you kind of like tend to look a little top heavy. If you're just a cyclist, you look a little bottom heavy. So like I've always loved the triathlon workouts and have kept those up on occasion just to like have that nice cross training across it because I do think
yes.
yeah. Um, so I'm very interested from your professional background and everything as a podiatrist. I'm not,
Mhm.
hopefully I'm not getting this wrong. I'm getting after, I was sick last week, so I've been a little foggy on things. But when I hear podiatrist, I'm thinking feet. Am I getting that wrong?
That's correct. No, yeah, absolutely correct. Yep. Foot and
So
ankle,
what,
biomechanics, all of that. Yes.
so how far up the leg do you usually go, and what are you thinking of? And what advice would you have for anyone in an endurance sport to say, hey, here's how you keep your feet healthy?
That's a great question. So, I a surgeon, so I do surgery as well. So in the state of Wisconsin, we can do surgery to the feet and ankle to about mid leg. That's where I can do surgery. But then in my clinic, biomechanically, it's hip all the way to the feet. Uh, in order to keep your feet healthy, that's a great question. Actually, it's not just the feet healthy, but it's the entire, like I say, kinetic chain, right? How your hip, knees, ankles, and feet work all the way together. Don't forget to do your small strengthening and exercises to really help with core muscles, glutes, and all the way to the ankle and feet. So it don't forget, how can I say that? Don't forget the small detail, essentially. Sweat the small detail always. Keep in
Yeah.
check with how you feel. Do you feel a little niggle? If so, get at it.
Yeah. Because I mean, yeah, I feel like as I get a little bit older, and I'm not that old, I'm mid 40s, but like that kinetic chain going from, I mean, I definitely realize more and more how much my hips drive everything else that
Yeah.
I do. My knees then support it and shock absorb it. My feet kind of do that as well, but also are taking the punishment of being that direct contact. The Yeah, it feels like it gets to be more and more of a full-time job to keep them healthy. Let
It
me
is.
can I ask you a hot take, because I've loved these so far. Have you ever seen the Hyper Ice leg squeezer bags where you basically put on these kind of like pants with vacuum tubes on them, and they do the squeezing in
Yes.
between? I have the hips set up and I have the legs set up. In your professional or non-professional, you can just have an opinion. That's fine. Are those things hype, or are those things actually a good act, like passive recovery tool? What's your hot take?
Oh, so that's a great question. Actually, I do have a pair myself, which I absolutely love, especially after a hard workout. I think it feels so good. So, from a medical standpoint, there's absolutely no research that will prove that this is an efficient way to recovery. And what is really the definition of recovery, right? Does it mean that how quickly can you go back to your sport after a hard workout? I mean, recovery, the word itself is, um, it's we lack a proper definition. But if it does feel good, absolutely. To me, also part of the recovery is how fresh do you feel after a hard workout. And to me, if that, squeeze sensation, which is essentially compression, while you're watching a movie, if it feels good and you enjoy it, then go for it. I don't think the worst thing it's going to do is nothing, essentially. So therefore, if you put it on and it feels good and you feel refreshed after, well, go for it.
Yeah. I feel like for me, it's like the idea of just getting a little bit more active blood flow through
Yeah.
and maybe curb some inflammation if I'm lucky. But yeah, it's just sometimes you just want something to squeeze. You just like, just squeeze
Exactly.
my legs, please. Um,
Exactly.
well, I want to eventually get back to recovery, but I want to talk a little bit more. You mentioned triathlons and everything, but I'm curious, like, what is your level of training that you're doing right now? Because coming in at a 4 hour time on 100K, like you're clearly on the faster end of the spectrum for most novice and or amateur women that are out just having
Mhm.
fun and everything. So tell me a little bit about what you're training for. What have been your goals this year? I can't imagine that the Waukon 100 was necessarily your A race, but if it was, that's great. But I'm curious, kind of like what you trained for this year and what your regular
Sure.
training routine is.
So actually, it's funny you mentioned that. This year was my first year, I want to say, in probably 25 years that didn't have a race on the calendar. And I wanted to take this year kind of more of a break from traditional structured training and just truly enjoy the events that I wanted to do. Because as you know, if you have an A race, there are races that you cannot do, right? Because of the timing and maybe it's too long based on your A race. However, this summer, I'm like, no, I'm just going to not sign up for anything and just try to enjoy myself and just try to do a little bit something different. Maybe I was getting a little burnt out of the structure training. So this has been a very good kind of I don't want to say off season, but kind of like a more relaxing summer for me. However, I still trained, my goodness, but most days is a 2 workout a day. I enjoyed the workouts, I enjoyed the training, but I didn't do anything very specific or structured this summer.
So what would that look like for you? Is this, go out and do something in the morning and then maybe after work or whatever, hit something in the evening? Give us some examples of what like a common week kind of looked like for you in this more
Sure.
relaxed setup.
So I still like to train for all three. So I enjoy swim in the morning. It's one of my favorite time to swim. So I get up usually early morning, go to the pool, do my workout, and then in the afternoon is typically the second workout, which is either a run or a bike. Depending on the time of the day, the time of the year, then my bike usually will vary in duration. So that's typically what I do for sure, Monday through Thursday. Fridays, I like to take them off. And then Saturday is usually a long bike, and Sunday is a long run.
Okay. That great structure. The so what were some of the fun things that you went and did this year? What were some of the things you enjoyed?
So actually, your race was, I should tell you that story about your race if you want to hear.
I
Uh,
definitely want to hear. But so yeah,
yeah,
we can start with the Walk on 100. What did you enjoy about the Walk on 100 if that was one of your
well,
favorites?
so a long story. My husband had signed up for your race a while back, and I kept going back and forth, and he essentially signed me up a couple of days prior. And at first, I was just like, I don't know if I want to do this. First of all, I'm not. Um, I'm a very, I call myself a tentative gravel racer. I'm not very technically as good as I would like. So to me, gravel race is always a little bit outside of my comfort zone. So it's always kind of more of an effort, and I'm a little bit more nervous and anxious. And if you recall, on that day, it was what, 20 miles an hour winds that day,
Yeah.
like 95 degrees weather. And I was almost upset with him, like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I'm getting up in the morning and going to this event. But it ended up being such a fun time. First of all, it was my first time riding those roads in Iowa. And I absolutely loved the course. It was beautiful. And yes, it was windy, but I thought it was fairly sheltered, both from most of the wind and also the heat. So it ended up being a very fun day. So kind of a fun surprise that you wake up one morning, don't feel necessarily like going for a race, but it ended up being a great day, really a fun day.
Oh, awesome. So glad to hear it. Well, so
Yeah.
Waukon is a little unusual for Iowa because it is down in the Driftless Hills area, and that's
Yeah.
very unique to Minnesota and to Iowa in that area. And so it's not so much that it's hilly, it's technically like, and I call other races dippy, but like you go through these long kind
Yeah.
of trout stream cut out, canyons kind of cut out from the trout streams or valleys. I am curious though, especially if you're not especially technical, because the beginning of the route, self-described, it sounds like, because apparently you clearly did very, very well, so it all worked out. The beginning of the route, generally, there's a long stretch of gravel, then you're a little bit on pavement, and then you drop down into
Yes.
this a little bit technical dip that goes
Mhm.
down, and then you have kind of a somewhat rocky
Yeah.
ascent out of it.
Yes.
How were you feeling at that point? Because I know then we can go on because then the rest of the race is very different. But how did you feel at that point? Say, first 3-4 miles coming into it.
Well, I first started, but my goal was to stick with the front group as long as I could at that point. And I remember maybe like 2 miles into it, the guys were gone, and I'm like in nowhere. And I'm trying to catch up, go as fast as I can. And then, like you described, is this descent. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I'm letting go of that front group. I just want to ride more conservatively because especially going downhill was definitely, and then climbing up is not too bad because you just pedal, right? It's all that you can do and try to stay, on a good line. But that climbing has never been too bad for me, but the descending is definitely where I get more nervous.
Well, then, how did you feel on the long descent after that? As you go down into the trout stream areas, how did that feel?
Oh, the same. I never feel comfortable descending. It's always outside my comfort zone. I always try to be a little bit more loose and relaxed instead of being tight and tense. But it was actually not very, it was ended up being a good course, was not overly technical. I didn't feel too much outside of my comfort zone, but it still always is, no matter what for me.
Yeah, it takes a little bit. Well, cool. I'm glad you enjoyed the Walk on 100, and we can come back to like recovery and stuff on that. Were there any other events this year that you especially enjoyed?
Actually, I will say and again, it's a local ride that the Smith Bike Shop here in La Crosse put on 130 miles. It was not gravel or road bike ride to celebrate their 130th anniversary. So there was a big group of us that did that ride, and I thought it was a very fun event. So that I also was something that I really enjoy, even though it was not a race. It was just a very fun and long event. So I like longer events.
Is that something that they do often, or was this kind of like a special one-off?
No, that was a very special one for their 130th anniversary. So 130 mile for 130th anniversary. So that was actually a great fun day. And again, the weather was beautiful. So it was a good day.
Oh, wonderful. That certainly makes a difference. I always love it when we can get guests on here that are from other areas and can promote and or talk about
Mhm.
other events and things that are going on, because we always hear about the Unbounds and the Mid-Souths and the
Sure.
Gravel Worlds and some of these big gravel events and everything, but the calendar is so full of other opportunities to make new friends, explore a new area, have more adventures. I always love it when we can find something else. Lacrosse is, I believe, where Gravel Nationals was this last year,
Yes.
and
Yes.
so it's an area that I definitely want to explore a little bit more,
Oh,
maybe after.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me then, what's your general recovery like after a race like this? Was this much of a recovery effort for you, or was this something that you're like, that was pretty good, go spin it off, and it wasn't too much of a what's your classic, what is your go-to recovery efforts when you're getting done either with a workout or a big effort?
That's a great question. You think you figured it out, and then it seems like the following week it doesn't work anymore, and I'm just turned 50 years old this year, and I'm finally realizing that, okay, the recovery has to be a little different than what I used to do, like, 15 years ago, where you pretty much just get up and go the next day. And yes, you're sore, but you still power through, right? So now I'm trying to listen a little bit more to my body. What does it mean? I think the intervals workout has to be spaced out a little bit more. And after a hard effort like Waukon, I mean, the beauty of being a triathlete is that the next day I can easily go for an easy swim. And that's typically my recovery workout. And I absolutely love to do that. You're in the water, it feels a little bit good. Yes, you can push it if you feel like it, but if you don't, you still can get somewhat of a good workout where you involve movement, and it really helps getting some, like you mentioned before, some blood flow and just some recovery movement that I really like. And sometimes all it looks like is just going for a long, nice hike the next day. I still like to do active recovery where I feel that whether it's walking or a light jog or some type of motion helps with the recovery. I think that's very important.
Yeah, I hear you. And it took me a long time. The longest triathlon I ever did was like a half. I've never done an
Mhm.
Ironman, but I've done a 70. And it took me a long time to realize how powerful and great it is that you can learn how to, just like you can run slow, you can swim slow, and let that
Yes.
be an active recovery area. And unless you're at my pool, where they keep it very, very warm, because a lot of the patrons are, I would say, closer to 70 and 80, and so they prefer it to be a little bit warm. You can find, if you can find a good pool that'll let you have some active recovery and some cooling effect through it
Oh,
and everything.
absolutely. Absolutely.
That's kind of nice. Okay, that makes sense. Well, let's maybe then transition over to nutrition. Like, what have you
Mhm.
learned over the last few years, going from triathlon to gravel and some of these other events? What have you learned for you about nutrition and what works well?
So nutrition, I see nutrition in two ways, as in during the event, but also in between events, right? Also in between workouts. What do you do day to day? However, if you ask me specifically during a race, I'm pretty much a 250 calories an hour gal. That's what works for me from the get go. And I do this, I'm very, very consistent. Whether I'm hungry or not, I stick to my 250 calories an hour, to 200 to 250 calories an hour. To me, that allows me to sustain my efforts, and that works well. I'm lucky I don't have a whole lot of cramping issues. So yes, I do try to take some salt, but I'm not as maybe consistent or as regimented as I should. But I mean, I've just about always did my 200 and 250 calories an hour. And I know that recently you see more pros introducing, 4 to 500 calories an hour. And, in theory, the more you can fuel during your event, the better it is. However, somebody like me who definitely does not pushing 400 watts, I don't think I need to push that hard. But I think the more you can, take some nutrition early on and sustain, the better it is. And the same goes for hydration. Hydration is very important. So I try to always have as much as I can that I carry on me. When I go to races, I try to be as self-sufficient as I can. I always research what will be on course. Some events, they're not supported at all, some are. So I try to decide how much, but I always, especially for gravel events, you never know where you're going to end up, or, because you are, a lot of time you're in the booties. I try to carry all my nutrition with me as best as I can.
So what's your favorite ways to get those 250 calories in? Are you a drink your calories kind of gal, or are you bars? What's kind of your preferred method anymore?
I usually just do liquid, whether it's gel or with, added powder to my water, but I don't do bars. I cannot really do solids during the race.
Yeah.
That doesn't go down for me. And nutrition is so individual. What works for me might not work for you. I mean, obviously, there are some basics that everybody should hit, right? But beyond that, I think it's very, very individualized, and everybody should experiment really what works, what doesn't work, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, it's actually one of the reasons why I love asking these questions about training and getting to know different folks, is so that we can kind of see, oh wow, I can be on the podium and I can do things completely differently from someone else. But you start seeing those themes of like what actually tends to work. You have to eat, you have to get good sleep, you have to recover.
Right.
How you do those things might be individualized or whatever, but you definitely see those themes.
And keep things simple, really. It's to me, I like to keep things simple. Yes, there's so much studies out there and lots of different ads for different product for this and that. Ketone was big last year. We don't really hear about ketones anymore. Why? Because it probably didn't work. I like to keep things simple, keep my gels and keep my hydration, and that's pretty much it.
I think ketones failed because they taste
Oh,
terrible.
oh my gosh, it is a fail. It was a total fail. We can get into that, which I could have predicted was a fail, but anyway.
I have a buddy who does marathons and is really interested in staying fast, even into his 40s and everything. And he, not too long ago says, "Man, I think ketones are amazing." And I'm like, "You can keep it, buddy. I love you. You're fantastic." But I've smelled them alone, and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to go that fast.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, very cool. All right, so some local events. You're focusing on being having fun this year. What's the future hold for 2026? What are you thinking about as you get ready for next year? Because there's always something next, right? What's kind of your something next that's maybe piquing your interest?
Next. I know. Well, I will have to be honest. I haven't been running as much this summer, so I'm trying to heal from an injury that I'm trying to figure out. And if everything goes well, I can get 100% better. I have a soft spot for, I don't know if you ever heard of extreme triathlons. So there's a new series that started in Norway, and it's essentially, they call it extreme triathlon, where it's an Ironman distance, but it is a self-supported events. And I've done a couple of them, and I have a site on one in Italy that I would absolutely love to do, but again, depends on how my health and recovery goes for this winter, but hopefully that's something that can maybe plan in the near future.
So not quite as, dialed in as something like Kona, where you know exactly it's going to be a fairly flat course, and the big thing that you have to balance is maybe the wind and maybe
No,
the
it's not
craziness in
that.
the water. Tell me what makes these Italian, or this what
Yeah,
makes
yeah, yeah.
these extreme? Because I can think of extreme things in Italy. You've got some great elevation, you've got some gravel roads, you've got some beautiful waters. Like
Mhm.
what makes this one in Italy extreme, not just
Extreme.
your classic your classic
Yeah.
Iron Man?
So full disclosure, I've been to Kona a few times already. I've done the race, and to me, um, I just wanted to move away from the Ironman brand. It's a great race. It's a fantastic race. It is well run, but I just wanted to try something different. And so those extreme race series, it's a point-to-point race, and usually it starts obviously in open water and it ends on a high point. So it's a positive elevation race. For example, the one I did in Norway, it's called Norseman. You start swimming in the fjord. After that, you cycle. I think it was not super hilly, but about 6 to 7,000 feet of climbing is again point to point, and then you end up
67,000 or 6,700,
six
or
six
6 to 7,000?
7,000.
Okay, there
Yes,
we go.
yes,
Six
six to
to
seven
7,000. Okay, yeah,
feet.
that makes sense.
And then after that, it's a trail run to, at that point, it was one of the highest point in Norway, Mount Gustavlik. And the last 5K, you need to be accompanied by someone because it is quite rugged trail run. And it's a self-supported race. And my husband has supported me for all my Ironmans, and he's a great guy, but it gets long for them. So with those events, he's able to crew for me, and it's been such a blast to get ready for those. He's wonderful. He's the one who takes care of all my gears and my bikes and kind of like the detail while I train. And so he was able to follow me all throughout that race and crew for me. So it was a great event, and they only take about 300 athletes. So it's a very
Mhm.
small event, and you kind of get to know everybody on the course too. So it's a fun kind of homey vibe. And then they have those just about uh, throughout the world. The United States, there used to be one in Utah. I don't know if it still exists. And then this one in Italy. I've never been to Italy, so we would like to check it out. And then so if I get healthy again, that would be my number one race that I would love to do.
Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Mhm.
On the crewing with this, are you only able to like take in items at the transition points between, the swim and the bike, or are there checkpoints along the way on the bike and the run where you can, you know,
Yeah.
top up on things?
And so no, it's completely self-supported. So you decide with your crew where you're going to meet them.
Oh, so you can decide any point on it. It's like if I wanted to meet up 3 times on the bike,
Correct.
for example, that they give you the route and they're like, yeah, go
Then you figure it out.
whoever.
Yep,
Okay,
yep,
very cool.
absolutely. So it takes a lot of thinking. Where do I think I'm going to be the slowest? Will I need to have a vest for whatever reason, or I think it's going to be cold, or change of clothes. So it takes some trying to figure out precisely, okay, where do I want my nutrition? How long is this going to take me? Do I want to bring an extra water bottle or not? Or so that's kind of also what is fun about those events is you really have to plan ahead of time and really write down everything and get really your plan well planned and executed too.
I wish I could tell myself back, when I was 10, 14 or whatever. And maybe I kind of knew this because I was doing things like Boy Scouts and stuff like that, that how much fun I would have with a spreadsheet and some maps and some docs ahead of time before like a big effort or event, through hiking
I
or doing an extreme event like what you're describing. Be like, it's crazy as you grow up, what you find out is play, and this idea of playing with like, well, what if I did it this way? What if I did it this way? Our play changes, but we still play in some way, and it makes it fun.
Absolutely. And my
Um,
husband's a engineer, so he loved to like figure out those numbers, and I just go for my workout, and he can plan the rest. So up to him.
oh, sounds like you guys make a good team. All right.
Yeah.
Well, Maggie, it has been so good to get to know you a little bit. I mentioned that there's one question that I often ask folks to kind of wrap things up, and that's the magic wand question. And I don't
Mhm.
know if I gave you enough time to really think about it or anything, but kind of off the top of your head or what you're thinking, like if you had a magic wand and you could kind of
Mhm.
change something in this, endurance world or gravel or whatever, what are what's some of the change or something magical that you would love to see happen in the future?
Some of the change. Is it okay to answer? I don't know if I would change anything.
Sure. I mean, if things
I
are great,
I know
it can be
I
that
know it
way.
I know it sounds strange what but I'll explain to you a little bit more my answer. To me, endurance sports, cycling and all that is to adapt to actual condition. I mean, I could go on and tell you, yes, I would love to see a little bit more of the so I'm going to answer this two ways, right? First answer that I have in mind, would I change anything? I don't think so. I'm very happy with what I'm doing. I mean, we have great cycling community. I'm having great fun. To me, you adapt to the situation. You adapt to races around you. I think that I have great opportunities to race. If you ask me a more broader, answer, yes, I think we could definitely change the access for professional women. I mean, we could do an entire podcast just on that, how fairness it could be for women in professional sports, right? Especially in cycling. I mean, it is unreal the amount of effort we need to put in just to barely scratch the surface of what we can do. We need more resources. I mean, we could do an entire conversation just on that. But based on me from day to day, what I would change, I don't want to say I don't want to age anymore. No, it's part of who we are. So we adapt. Do I want to change where I live or absolutely not? And we have good equipment. I have great friends, great cycling community. So I don't think I would necessarily change anything in that aspect. Does it make sense, my answer? I know it's kind of
Absolutely.
all over the place,
No,
but
I mean, look, I think one of the hardest things to be as we get older is okay. Like just being like, you know what, this is great. Like I'm happy with where
life is
I'm at. I'm
good.
happy with the upper opportunities, and that gratitude and gratefulness, I think, are a really good, healthy mindset, right? And I think you're balancing that with the understandings that like, would it be nice if there was equal participation across genders or even age groups across all events,
Mhm,
these events do tend to lend towards people that are 30 plus and tend to be male, and some of them
mhm.
even bald, but I say that as basically I'm looking in the mirror here, looking at the call. I know that I'm kind of like middle of the pack type of person, but I think I get your point that it's really good to be happy with where we're at, and
Mm.
it's good to have and enjoy and enjoy the things that we have. So no, I think we can hold both of those thoughts and feelings at the same time, and it's okay, right?
Yeah.
Um, well, like I said, Maggie, so good to meet you. So good to get to know you a little bit. Um, do you think you'll be back on an Iowa Gravel Series race sometime in the
I would
future?
love to. Absolutely.
Do you
Absolutely.
Is Waukon, you think, probably the farthest you'd go, or are you curious about any of the other races that we have? I don't know if you've even looked at them.
I have looked at them. Waukon is for sure, obviously, because it's within driving distance, and we were looking at maybe other ones to take a look now.
Okay. Well, you like the climbing, but you don't necessarily like the descending, right?
That's right.
Do you want something flatter? I could make some recommendations. Is there anything that you?
No.
Okay.
I have
Right.
to get out of my comfort zone. I need to learn. I need to do this over and over again to get better at it, right?
Okay. Well, then if you want your climbing and you have to just deal with your descending at the same time, I definitely
There you
always
go.
push the Soldier Cutoff Hill Duro. That'll be in
Okay.
September next year. It's on the far end of Iowa, so it's like it's a bit of a drive for you, but it is just as beautiful if you like that climbing stuff. And
Oh, good.
if
Okay.
you want to stick to the flat end of things, both Fairfield and Kelowna are beautiful as well.
Okay.
So
Good.
those would be my
Yeah, those
plugs.
are good. Okay. Definitely look into that.
Okay, perfect. Well, Maggie, thank you so much. I'll go ahead and let you go for tonight, but thank you. It was so wonderful to get to know you.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you for having me, Chris.
All right, catch you later.
Bye.